In the early 1970s, Mario Puzo and Francis Ford Coppola created two of the most influential films in American motion picture history, recipients of 9 Academy Awards, including 2 for Best Picture. Nearly 20 years later, Puzo, Coppola, and many of their original collaborators assembled to make The Godfather Part 3. Here are their memories, spanning from 1970 to the present.
Then Paramount said, you're not going to use a real horse's head. I said, well, how can you do it? Make one out of plaster. So as the date approached, they sent a horse's head from Hollywood. It was all dusty and old.
Mr. Ed.
Mr. Ed is in there.
The horse is a horse.
It ought to be shot on one side and so forth.
The pet lovers, when they protested that, is we ordered it from the same source where they get the pet food.
We wanted a horse that matched the real horse.
Right.
And then we had to put a certain diamond pattern on the head.
You know, I just remember about that thing is that we did that. We kept this head on ice for a while, obviously, because I remember the day we shot the scene. It was extremely hot out.
Oh, we got that. I like that worked good when you played, that you hadn't been let up for like 20 years. You had this responsibility and the old.
The thing that's different about Godfather 3 and Godfather 2 is that Michael is different. But in order to see how he's different, we got to get a few tastes of it. Because we need a little emotion. If we could put a little emotion, like in 3 places in the movie, that would be the thing. Because
just have the weight of the gravity. That's what does it. You know what I'm saying is that you've never, from the time you committed that first sin, you've never had the weight off of you. Okay, well, and you must have, you can't take it anymore. Okay. Just to be different.
It seems to me that whatever the film lay in a balance, and if I kicked it one side and kicked it to being more personal and more even soap opera or more emotional, that would be enough to kick it over, you know? The audience has got to be like this during this thing, you know? I mean, it's got to be, Jesus, this guy is cracking. This guy is, for the first time, I know he's really worried that he did the wrong thing. I mean, he's got a conscience. I mean, how can we put the intensity of that in this moment alone? You see, there's no one in the room except this corpse. So he can speak freely, and I mean, you almost could see him by the coffin being very emotional. And then he says, where did I go wrong, is what he's saying. Is it too late for me? Are my sins too great? Did I love too much or too little?
There's a point, like, you know, you get a virtuous man and he commits an unvirtuous act. He's so horrified that he's committed that unvirtuous act that it becomes even more terrible, in a sense.
The only trouble is these are all intellectual ideas, and we're trying to get something really just emotional that the guy's speaking from his heart. I mean, he's a guy who's clearly getting ready for death, and he's very worried that it's like King Lear, he hasn't set things right.
My history with The Godfather was very much the history of someone in trouble. I found the first movie very tough to do and very tough to finally pull off. I was a young director. I hadn't really done a lot of work, and I had this opportunity to do this novel. I thought of myself as a professional director making an adaptation of a novel. You know, I knew that as the book became more popular and more successful, I realized that in a sense it was beginning to outclass me, and that I wouldn't have gotten the job had, you know, 5 months later the book become the sensation that it was. And even in the early weeks of the production, I knew that they were not happy with what I had done. The kind of classic style that I chose in Rushes maybe didn't impress them. But I just wanted to survive it. I knew that my ideas regarding the casting were not popular. It had been a very difficult time to try to convince the studio that my notions about casting were right.
I remember he was having a lot of problems. Every time he mentioned Brando's name, one of the executives is the right word, said, if you mention his name again, you're out.
And the guy who was then the president said, as president of Paramount Pictures, these are his exact words, as president of Paramount Pictures, Marlon Brando will never appear in this motion picture.
Let me lay it on the line for you and your boss, whoever he is. Johnny Fontaine will never get that movie.
I remember I just sort of fell on the floor and I said to them, you know, at least give me a chance. I said, all right, if number one, he does the movie for nothing, if he does a screen test, and if he puts up a bond guaranteeing that none of his shenanigans will cost a delay, you can consider him. So I said, all right. And I called up Brandon, whom I didn't know, and had made that contact, and said, oh, what if I do some makeup tests, I said, to get around the screen test. And I went and I brought Italian cheese and cigars and stuff. And we were just shooting, and he saw the cheese and he went like that, and he started to take his hair and put shoe polish on. And he says, it's like a bulldog, and puts on. He goes, I want to have, and he's doing this right there, and I'm shooting it, and then he started going, he put Kleenex in his mouth, and he had.
I forget the amount of time, but a very short time, he knew the cast. As a matter of fact, Bobby Duvall, Al Pacino, and myself flew up to San Francisco, the Zoetrope. Eleanor, his wife, cut our hair, put a bowl over her head, cut our head, and with a 16mm camera, we improvised and did some stuff. And that was it, okay?
Don Corleone. Don Corleone, please.
Hey, it's good, huh? It's good.
That cost him like 4 corned beef sandwiches, I think, the whole,
I was more or less just sort of wandering. I didn't know what was going on. I mean, movies were very new to me, and Duvall would say before each take, he said, no matter what you do, you're going to laugh on this take. And I didn't want to laugh.
I don't want to hear this, Sonny, but if your father dies, make the deal. It's easy for you to say he's not your father. Wait a minute, it's easy for you to say it's not your father. It's easy for you to say it ain't your father. Fuck you and your asshole. Very nice, Jim.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Come on, you asshole.
You started. I know you don't want to hear it, Sonny, but if your father dies, make the deal. Well, it's easy for you to say he's not your father.
I think Jimmy at the time wanted to play Michael, said, no, you should play Sonny. Well, I want, and then I said, well, you read Hagen. I kept saying it was Hogan. Cole said, no, it's Hagen. And, it was all like a joke in a way, because who knew what it was going to be? But it was like, I had seen Al on Broadway. I said, this kid would be terrific for this. And, we talked about it, informally.
You see, I'm not saying there's Sonny, and saying Sonny, or Freddie, come here. I'd like you to meet. I'm not doing that.
How far to go? So he does it in this very indirect way. He doesn't say, look, my father is a criminal, a gangster who has been shot, and he kind of tells her little anecdotes. And at first, it's nice. Even when it's lighter, it's fine, but the scene is a serious scene.
When I read The Godfather, whenever I would see the character of Michael, I saw Al's face.
Luca Brasi held a revolver against Hallie's head, and my father told Hallie that either his signature or his brains would be on the contract.
He wasn't a star, which was not pleasing to the executives at that time. He didn't look like stars look like at that time in the business.
So that when they were suggesting, like Ryan O'Neal or Robert Redford could be like a Northern Italian, I already had Al's face ingrained.
Michael, why are all these people bothering your father on a day like this?
Oh, that's because they know that no Sicilian can refuse any request.
For some reason, they were not happy with Al's test. But I knew Francis wanted Al.
And 104.
Action.
I was aware that they didn't want me, And
Michael, why are all those people bothering
at one point, and it was actually, you know, it seemed okay finally. I thought, Francis, look, I mean, we'll do another movie together. I was relatively young, so I didn't know quite. I thought, well, maybe they were all like this. You know, they get all. I had seen movies about Hollywood. I thought maybe that's why all the screen tests.
Well, this is a slow wedding. This isn't a wedding.
One night I got a call from Francis. He was in New York, and he said, Jimmy, and I could tell from his voice this was not his idea. Jimmy, why don't you come in and test? I said, test what? What, do you got a Porsche you want me to drive around the block? What do you want? Test what? He said, please, they want you to play Michael. What? Please. So I went in.
On 68.
Action?
Michael, why are all those people bothering your father on a day like this?
Well, that's because they know no Sicilian can refuse a request on his daughter's wedding day.
Oh, good.
I don't think you can name an actor that wasn't there. They were all sitting around on cement floors from 7 in the morning to late at night. Guys with, some guys talk like this, I mean, that guy's from all over the world.
They tried to kill him, my father. They did. They nearly did. Mr. Brazzi went after them. And so the story goes.
The story goes that he killed 6 men in 2 weeks.
He killed 6 men in 2 weeks.
6 men in 1 week.
And he kept sneaking Al in, At the end of the day, he kept testing Al,
It kept happening a lot. And it was countless. They went on and on. I remember saying at the time, I just don't respond well to being around where I'm not wanted. Well, anyway, he just stayed with it. It was his tenacity, and that got me in there.
So what I'm saying is that they spent $400,000 or so on tests and wound up with the 4 corned beef sandwiches.
I wish that you could get inside of Al's head a little more of Michael's character, because he's always such a master manipulator. Okay, Michael has intellectual sides, so that it's like he does have an inkling about his tragedy. And if we could kind of like put the nail on that, really say it emotionally. But just have the weight of the gravity, that's what does it. It's hard to get into Michael Corleone's head. I mean, he was such a creature of the time that he lived in. Okay. The father did what he did to protect his children. Then the child grew up and did what he did to protect his children, but got himself into a moral quandary. So he's worried that he's somewhere between the past and the future. And he says, no, it's too late for me. Time has passed me by.
I was already hired as Michael. They kept saying, well, when is he going to do something? While we were shooting, there were hints coming back to me that I wasn't wanted. And with more than hints, people were actually, giggling when I go on camera. And the studio kept seeing this footage coming back, and they said, well, he sort of, he seems dull. I was out. And then the Saluzzo scene came.
I never forgot that, and later on when we were stumped on how to do the young Marlon, I thought that he could be the young Brando. I went to Paramount, I told them the idea, they said no.
One thing we were trying in Sicily when I was older, Brando had something in his mouth, and I went to the same dentist and just got a smaller one. And I tried to get a little heavier for that period because he was a little older and a little mature and so on. And so one of the things we were trying to decide was about the mustache, whether I should have a mustache or not. And it was a whole thing back and forth to make this commitment to have the mustache or not to have the mustache. So finally, I said, I think I said, you forget these things, but I think the way I remember it is, I said, well, why don't we flip a coin? And just flipped a coin, and heads it's on, tails it's off, and so it was heads, I guess.
Mio padre si chiama Antonio Andolini e questo è Petit.
The second movie, we had a disastrous preview 3 weeks before it opened in San Francisco, and we made a lot of changes that week, and then showed it in San Diego, and it seemed to play much better. And I worked very hard on Godfather 2 to try to have you feel what these people were feeling, because the story was a double parallel, which kind of made it hard to follow one line. The main character was turning into a zombie.
Connie, why don't you tell him marriage is out of the question and you don't want to see him anymore? He'll understand, believe me. If you don't listen to me and marry this man, you'll disappoint me.
And I think the version that was shown in San Diego was more heavily intercut, that the stories, each story interrupted the other more often. Rather than 12 back and forth, there were 20 back and forth or something. And it, the direction that we went after that screening was to just clear the decks a little bit, or a lot, actually, and let the story tell itself up to a point, and then go back to the other story, and then let that story tell itself and go back. So that was an ongoing struggle, which, I remember Francis saying at the end of that, if we'd only had 2 more weeks, it could have been great.
In Godfather 2, at the end of Godfather 2, as you remember, there's a scene where they flash back to the family in the happy days, and Sonny was still alive, and everyone's sitting around the dinner table.
Here's the cake.
And in this scene, Brando was going to be there too, as a small cameo. And up until the very last minute, they expected Brando to appear for that day of shooting.
Oh, honey, that's nice, eh?
Should I put the candles on now?
Yeah, go on. You help, all right, Carlos? Sure.
Unfortunately, when the day finally arrived, Brando didn't show. There were legal problems, deal problems, etc. So Francis improvised and came up with the idea of making the event that everyone had gathered for Brando's surprise birthday party.
He's here, come on.
Come on. Come on. Stupid.
One feels the presence of Brando without seeing him, which almost makes him more mythical and more of a memory than seeing the man's face would have done.
The second one was a continuation, and in a way, it was a kind of a descent, in a way, into trying to hold on to everything and losing it.
Fredo, you're nothing to me now.
Making The Godfather, the first Godfather, was just like nonstop anxiety and, wondering when I was going to get fired. And
we had 2 kids, and I was pregnant with a third, and it was like kind of a horrifying time because it seemed like at any moment the whole thing would collapse. And
I remember once being in the men's room, and some crew members came in and they were talking, what a piece of junk, and that guy doesn't know what he's doing.
No one knew when you were going to be fired on that first movie. And so the thing is, just get enough footage in the can, Keep going, keep shooting.
When I look back at the pleasure of it, it's I guess the pleasure looking back is the thing. That's the pleasure, that you're able to look back and that you survived.
During the first few weeks of Godfather 1, I gained a great deal of respect for him for what he had to go through, what Paramount was putting him through with the second, not a second unit director, a second director following him around. In case he was fired, you're out, this guy goes right in. And that's a fact.
When I hear people talk about how they've liked some of those films years later or that they were wonderful films, all I can think of is, well, I wish I'd heard it then because I could have sure used the encouragement.
And when I think of The Godfathers, I think of Michael.
In his heart, in other words, was I so sure that I was right that that's why he says, did my heart betray me?
This time, don't say give one more chance, just say give me the chance to redeem myself, if you can remember.
See, anything that could show Michael really turning on himself.
Can we go?
I mean, the guy is really worried that he maybe is a bad man.
Finally, he's torn between good and evil. I mean, he is literally torn apart.
Maybe he's talking about one thing and then he...
I think when Francis and Mario get together and start talking about this subject, anywhere near it and around it, it's still in them, and there's something that stimulates them about it. And, Francis is a good example of that saying, man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for? I don't know, maybe I'm going to do this, but then they want me to do this, and then you say, uh-oh, he's planning something. That's a couple of years before it happens, too.
Well, one of the things he does that's so brilliant, 2 months before we started this film, he brought the cast to Napa Valley, to his home.
I'm interrupting you. We would like to rewrite this scene.
And to his little studio on the outskirts of San Francisco. And we sat around, we read the script, we talked, and he's brilliant at it, brilliant.
No, I understand, but it still is the end. I mean, you
But we
went
got to
to
do
the
that
end.
step first before we even
Yeah.
do that. We're going to have 4 hours of emotion, but it's going to all happen in 4 minutes because I have many things to resolve. I have you, I have the other one, I have the other one, and it all has to be like one great emotional thing.
Yeah, but it's like, how does it end? How does it end? I mean, is it...
On C, take 4, A&B cameras. Have a party, folks, and background.
I don't think Francis knew who I was. He said, he says that Paramount was suggesting some kid, the Paramount suggestion,
Mark.
Who do they want now, for the part? Because apparently he had some wild suggestions from before, and who was going to play Michael Corleone. So, who was this guy?
Mancini?
Is he Spanish? Who do they?
But they all work out at the end.
Early on in Napa, we were just going through readings. Francis had kind of conceived Vincent as a combination of all the brothers, and the grandfather. He had kind of the the temper of Sonny
And then they will fear you.
The smarts of Vito, kind of the calculations of Michael, and the warmth of Fredo.
What's the trouble between you and Mr. Joseph?
Just trouble. I'll take care of it.
It's foolish.
I said, well, that's fine to want to make it, but, about what? I pretty much mined the emotional material of that family. And it's not like other kinds of sequels where you just then, like Sherlock Holmes, drum up another adventure.
Francis never said no to me, which encouraged me, because I always kind of thought that there is going to be a moment in time when he is going to want to do it.
I said the only Godfather film I would do after this is Abbott and Costello meets The Godfather, and you have the Abbott and Costello and, hey, Abbott, the guy is over,
We talked to actors like John Travolta, Sly Stallone. I mean, it took all kinds of permutations.
Then, of course, they were all thinking, well, Michael would have a son, and he would go on, and et cetera, et cetera.
It became a Las Vegas story, became an Atlantic City story in the casinos there.
But for me, the tragedy of The Godfather, which is the tragedy of America, is about Michael Corleone. By the end of Godfather 2, just like America in that period, Michael had become wrapped in kind of self-righteousness and just distrusted everyone, and
getting more and more like a paranoid person, like a Nixon.
There's no doubt that there's a thug sort of lurking somewhere in Michael, but something that he doesn't really cater to or admit to, And even if he does admit to it at times, it's not something he's comfortable with. Don't ever again give that kind of order. Not while I'm alive. I command this family, right or wrong. It was not what I wanted!
I think one of the reasons Francis was ready to do this third film is that he really did have something he wanted to say, something about a man in his middle age looking back on his life, reflecting on his successes, on his failures, reflecting on his mortality, reflecting on his family and what he would be leaving his family, his heritage. And these are things that are very much on Francis's mind now.
In Godfather 3, the difference is that Michael, who is looking for a kind of redemption, his tone is, rather than conspiratorial, it becomes confessional. The thing we're asking for is the very thing that the film is asking for, is to be able to get closer to his feelings. You know, that he's such a insulated guy, Michael Corleone.
He's so more disgusted with himself than another guy would be.
So then the question is, if he did all these terrible things, maybe his heart gave him up, maybe his heart didn't protect him. He wanted to always do murder, do murder, do murder. There was always some little weird detail before the violence happens. Remember, like in Godfather 2, when the light bulb is out and the towel catches fire, or some little thing that causes you to remember, even though it may be very, very short.
Got the idea from someone who told me about how they had heard this is how people in that situation would wrap a towel around a pistol and do this kind of slaying execution or whatever.
Rome, one day there was some Italian holiday, and they said, well, Monday is closed. I said, well, closed? You know, we got our whole people here, we got a lot of work to do. So we invented cafe production. We just went to the Via Veneto and we got set up on around, you know, this big long table, and we just did our day's work sitting in a cafe. And I remember in that session, we were going through everything, and we had the idea, well, what if in the middle of this big kind of summit meeting in Atlantic City, and all of a sudden all the tables start shaking, and
But he wanted not to see the helicopter as a helicopter, but to see it from the point of view of the people being killed, which is just that there's something up there, which might be a helicopter, which is, you know, raining fire down on us. So he just wanted to keep it mysterious.
in the first Godfather, I think it was, we had the guy get shot in the eye, which is disgusting, but it was startling. And I wanted to do something at the end that was like that, but he was a political figure, and the person who went in was totally unarmed and had been through detectors, and yet he had to be able to kill him.
See, violence is a very difficult thing for Francis in a way, because he really does not like violence and doesn't like the violent aspects of the Godfather films. And therefore, when he is going to do something violent in one of the films, he always tries to find a way to do it that's a little different than what you've seen before. To have the actor simply go up there and break the guy's neck was a little tame and expected. Francis, later on in post-production, came up with a different idea of how to do it, one that most of us probably have not seen before, one that may or may not even practically be possible.
And I got this idea, you know, again from Kurosawa. What if the guy just took, because this character wore big heavy glasses, just took his glasses and just ripped his aorta open with the glass, because he knew he would be wearing the glasses. He always has like a gush of blood, you know, and all that.
You kill him with a pencil. I don't want to kill him with a pencil.
Spade! Denver, take 5. Okay, Antonio?
Good.
Okay.
Ready?
Action!
Pulse it. Stop the blood. Stop the blood. Un momentino di più.
In the original cut of The Glasses Killing, which was first presented to the censors,
You got a Polaroid of that?
we were given an NC-17 rating for the Godfather film, unless we were willing to trim back the spurt. And the actual sort of real blood Catholic ritualistic aspect of the killing was sort of lost a little by having to censor it.
When I was a kid, my dad conducted a production of Cavalleria Rusticana. I used to go a lot with my father, and sometimes he would let me sit in the orchestra pit next to him. I remember 4 or 5 things just impressed me so much. One was the idea that these men had an argument and then one bit the other's ear and drew blood, and that was a Sicilian way to do a duel, and it meant it would be a duel to the death.
Come on, Vincent. Come. Make your peace.
He basically told me a brief history of, how this fits in the operatic sense. Here are these 2 men making their peace, and then the one guy crosses the line for a second by throwing in that one little, has to say that one little derogatory comment about his origin.
Everything was always, up for grabs, It was the only thing that was sacred was what, in fact, was in the can. And if it wasn't in the can, it could change the next day. I mean, I think Dean Tavolara said that with Francis, the script is like a newspaper, and a new one comes out every day.
This is a conspiracy, and it's got to have the feeling of a conspiracy being unraveled, and bam, the solution is made, and you guys are going to fight back.
With Francis, when he gets set up in something, he's always going to go, and he's going to reach, and he's going to try to go further than he did before. I knew when he said he was going to do it, when he first said it, it was 2 years before he said he was going to do it, because I think he had to ruminate about it. And then finally, when it did come, he had, I think, something he wanted to talk about.
We're into very subtle guilt stuff here, because who ultimately, if he's just sworn on the life of his kids that he won't sin again, does he sin again? It's the sin of omission. He doesn't stop him. But he's like really up a pickle here. Very tricky. Yeah, but it's interesting. It's evil against good at this point over there. And it's a real enigma he's caught in. Pop, what would you do now? We had the same dream. Pop, what would you do now? I mean, he reaches out to his father. I mean, what could his father give him at this point? What wisdom is he looking for? Thought he loved his family so much, but maybe he was always a loner, and that's why he couldn't really, he became too much the head of the family in his mind and not enough in his heart. A real father, a real family member always does what's good for the family. See ya. Taking your picture. I always really treasured the times with the family and loved all of them very much. I always thought that those get-togethers with my uncles and my cousins always were high points to me. And I learned to turn to them when I was in trouble, and I reached out wherever I could for those things that I knew were definite because I had lived that way. And as the movies were made one after another, more and more, The Godfather became just kind of the biggest home movie in history. And my attitude was, why not have Tally play the part, because maybe it'll be good for her.
You know who that was on the phone? Your girlfriend. She couldn't make it tonight, you know? What do you mean, what's for dinner? Did you hear what I said to you?
So you know what I did the first day when I went on the set the first day? I walked into the camera and knocked it down. And because I didn't wear my glasses and I was so nervous. And Marlon Brando, as I walked right smack, and he came over to see if I was okay because it was a very large, so naturally, the first day, the sister knocks the camera down.
Why not have my father get his break so he can write the music? And why not put my little baby in the baptism scene?
Diane recently said to me that, yes, she was modeling the role on me, and I'm always a little startled to think that there's that much similarity.
It is natural to feel like a band of actors or a band of a family. You know, it occurs besides, of course, Francis, additionally trying to have people come together with dinners and rehearsal periods, which are really nothing more than creating kinfolk out of each other.
And my idea is that when a cast early on can do something sort of sensual together, eat together, or in some way really participate together, that they get certain kind of bias that stays with them. And then much later, when you're in a scene and something happens, that comes out and accounts for the kind of realistic response because the preparation has, prepared them for it.
In the beginning, we go to up near Patsy's up in East Harlem, and we all sat around. We sat, in positions at the dinner table as if it were the fictional family.
And I had Marlon sitting at the head of the table, and next to him was Jimmy Caan. On the other side was Bobby Duvall, and my sister Talia was serving the homemade style food.
My job as the kid was to set the table. In my male family, I wasn't allowed to talk. But it was the right improvisation. That was a very correct technique on Francis's part. He started to create the family around the dinner table.
And little by little, Jimmy Caan was showing off, trying to impress Marlon and with his jokes, and Al was looking intense and trying to impress Marlon with his kind of sensitivity.
So we got to know each other, kind of like a family outside the fictional frame, and naturally, if you're relaxed and loose and open, whatever, that's going to carry over.
As Brenda was talking, Duvall was for some reason making these mimicking faces of him, and so I moved away just to. So I thought, well, it's good for my character.
Brando and I sat by ourselves off in the corner and had a few glasses of wine, a couple, maybe too many, and he said, "Jimmy, let me ask you something. If you could have anything you wanted, anything, what would it be, So I was feeling in my cups myself, and I said, I don't know, maybe, be in love, Jeez, he goes, me too. Don't tell my wife,
Everyone was doing what the roles were. They were doing it, and you knew you were doing it in a crazy kind of way, and you couldn't help it. Because I thought, what else are we here? We'd never be here anyway if it wasn't for the movie.
Action! Azione!
On Godfather 3, it was a little different because, it was 18 years later or 16 years later, and everyone had become famous and rich, and just to get them all in one place was tough.
You know what's so interesting about this movie, too? At least to me, I found this kind of mind-crushing deja vu, because we take this whole group of people, and then you're all standing there looking at each other on a location, dealing with a place, and dealing with actors you dealt with 20 years earlier, and it's staggering, and you rarely get an opportunity ever. Not rarely, you don't get an opportunity ever to do a thing like that.
When you bring back the whole crew from the previous pictures and you're using old collaborators who knew each other over many years, who had gotten old together, who had learned together, has to have some flavor that will influence the theme, because it is about a family being made by a family.
I said to Ellie years ago, and it's very true, I said, we're the Voilandes. We're the most dangerous act in town. But something about a circus family is that you can do the difficult stunts with people, they'll catch you.
For everyone look toward me, nice. So much of the way we work with the collaborators is in that way that has to sort of influence the movie.
And try to smile, will you, Vincent? And go!
Creating the possible things that could happen, the accidents that would happen.
Oh, here's a cake.
I remember one scene in which the Godfather was supposed to die. And we had a break for lunch, and there was like about an hour left. It's like fundamental in the story. If Michael really could talk to his father, let's say Michael went to heaven, and there he was greeted by Don Vito Corleone, and he says, Pop, I'm here. How did I do? And the father says, you forgot one thing. And he says, what? He said, whatever I did, I always listened to my heart. And Michael said, I did too. Let him stay in the mood. Let's go. Just like that, standing by the roll.
Goodbye, old friend. We won all our battles, didn't we? You and I.
Don Tomasino, we won all our battles, you and I. And to what purpose? My family still is in danger. You in your coffin, only 90. You could have lived a little longer. And I could be nearer to my dreams.
You could have lived longer. I could be closer to my dreams.
And like after Sonny died, kind of that weakness, being wounded. Because it's like pain to it.
It's so interesting. Francis just can give you a narrative. I mean, he can stand there all day and tell you what the characters are thinking. This is so unusual. There may be more Michael and Francis there are than me. Tell me, Don Tomasino, why I so condemn myself. Why? What betrayed me? My heart, my mind.
That kiss is like a guitar string. Like that, it had a 1-2, but if it could just, have the one.
Want to get out of that heavy thing again.